Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the next Button English Podclass. So, here we are. You may have noticed that the dynamic duo is missing a partner. Wah, wah, wah. So, here's the story. We have an almost 2-year-old daughter. And it seems that today she's having a little trouble falling asleep. So Daniel is there taking care of that situation. And I'm here to keep the show alive and to talk with all of you. Appropriately, we have this beautiful guitar that is taking his place, right? Daniel, the musician, appropriately being represented by this beautiful guitar. Her name is Rosie, by the way. We're very fond of her. But anyway, thank you for joining us. I'm going to leave this space open so that if he's able to wrap things up, or an expression we learned in our last podcast, if he's able to get out of there in time and join us, even if only for a minute or two, there'll be space for him to kind of sneak in and join us. So that's why this space will be here for him. But let's get started on the topic at hand. So Daniel and I both, we are avid readers. Okay. Let me just pause there. Avid is a word that means that you are very enthusiastic, passionate, excited about something. So both Daniel and I are avid readers. We love reading. We're very curious people. We love learning new things. And we both love books. There are books everywhere in our house. I'm pretty sure that almost every room of the house, if not every room of the house, has at least one book in it. So when we were thinking, well, okay, what's going to be our next topic? Well, let's talk about some books we like. And we're going to focus today on nonfiction books. Okay, so which is still a very broad category. I'm going to speak mostly about books that I've read and that I like, and a couple of books that I'm interested in based on what I've heard. I don't know if we'll get through them all. We certainly won't have Daniel's perspective, at least for part of it. So it is likely that perhaps we'll have a part 2 to this podcast sometime in the future, maybe. So you can look forward to that as well. So let's get started. I mentioned my daughter and her troubles falling asleep this evening. And that brings me to the first category. Because if you are a parent, you know that it sort of takes over your life. Yeah. So this past almost 2 years, I haven't had as much time as I usually do to read. And the time that I have had, I have dedicated to a certain category of nonfiction books that is devoted to parenting. But in my explorations, I have come across a couple of favorites that I would like to mention. One is a book that I recommend to everyone. All of my friends are probably sick of hearing me talk about it, but it's really a great book, and it's a nice read, even more than just being a great book. And what do I mean by a nice read? A nice read means like it's not painful to read, and it's not very difficult, or you don't have to focus a lot. You get to enjoy it while you're reading it. The way it's written is very, it's very episodical. She talks about she talks about letters and problems that parents bring to her, and then how she addresses the issue. And in doing that, she creates a sort of overall philosophy or pattern that you begin to recognize in the book. So that's my first book that I'd like to talk about. And it is about parenting, and specifically about discipline and how young children work. This book specifically is targeted towards toddlers. So, what are toddlers, right? Toddlers in English, it's that age group right after children learn to walk, all the way up to, I would say, about 4 or 5 years old. Okay, so it's this phase of childhood. And toddle means to kind of, to move and walk unsteadily, right? Not secure, not right. And so since they've just learned to walk, they kind of, right, wobble a little bit, they fall down a lot. So that's where this term toddler comes from. So this book is specifically targeted at toddlers and all the changes that they go through, which is why in my particular situation, it has been a great book, because it's right where I am with my daughter. So the title of the book is called No Bad Kids. There's a longer subtitle as well, but that's too difficult to remember. So just No Bad Kids. The author's name is Janet Lansbury. Again, it's a great book because it's easy to read. It's very practical. And it's really helped me a lot in a lot of different ways. Understand and deal with certain behaviors and approaches to how to handle things. So I always super recommend that book. It's one I really like. I've read it quite a few times to remind myself of certain things, because in the moment it's easy to forget. There's only one other book that I want to talk about in this category. And this book is a little different from the first one. So this book is more science-based. So if anyone is out there who likes this kind of thing, this book is for you. So it looks at scientific research, and it puts a whole bunch of things together, and it talks about a child's brain and how it develops. I haven't read the whole book yet, because some of the things are for when they're a little bit older and you can communicate a little bit more with them. So I'm putting it on the back burner, to use an expression that we covered on our channel, on our Instagram channel. But I did read a couple of things, and I did already use one of them, and it worked really well. So this book is called The Whole Brain Child. The Whole Brain Child. And the author's name is Daniel J. Siegel. Okay, so again, very interesting book because it focuses on the different areas of the brain, how they communicate with each other, and how developed or underdeveloped they are. And then it kind of gives, I wouldn't say exercises, but kind of examples of things that you can do in the moment with your kids to help them develop those areas and develop the neurological connections between the brain. It's really fascinating. And again, especially if you like science-based answers and explanations, this is the parenting book for you. So just real quick, because I know I'm talking And sometimes that's hard to just hear because I'm a visual person as well. I'm just going to switch here, and I'm just really quickly, I'm just going to jot down the two book names that I just talked about, just so you can see them. I'll leave it on there for a minute, and then we'll switch back and keep talking. So like we said, this is in the parenting category. And the first one was called No Bad Kids. Yeah. And then the second one's called The Whole Brain Child. Yeah. The Whole Brain. Here we go. Child. Okay. So No Bad Kids and The Whole Brain Child. Those two of the ones that I've looked through and sampled so far, those two seem to be my favorites and the ones that are most practical. Okay. All right. So that was one category. Now, don't worry if you're not a parent. That's not what this whole thing is going to be about. So we will move on. Since we started talking about the whole brain child and how it is science-based, I do have one recommendation or one book that I like in the science category, which is surprising because I don't really, it's not that I don't like science, I do, but it's not one of my favorite things. So it would never be something that I would imagine myself enjoying reading an entire book about, right? But quite a few years ago, I heard about this book. People were saying really good things. The topic seemed really interesting. People said that it was easy to understand. So I thought, let's have a go. All right? Let's have a go is the same as let's give it a try. Yeah? Let's have a go at it. Let's give it a try. Let's see. Let's try and see if we like it. I actually have that one in physical form, not just digitally, so I can show you it. And it's called The Fabric of the Cosmos. And the author is Brian Greene. And it talks about space, time, and the texture of reality. It's a physics book. So space, time, and the texture of reality. And I have to say that this book was really cool. The topic is super fascinating. And the concepts are complicated, but he explains them in very clear, logical ways. So it wasn't too difficult to follow. Every once in a while, I would have to go back and read it again to make sure I understood. But overall, I understood the concepts and I really enjoyed learning about these things. And in everyday life and in conversation, I find myself referencing what I had read. So that's why I really enjoyed this book, and that's why it's on my list. And it's a surprise for me because, again, it's not really a category that I would necessarily see myself enjoying. Well, aren't we lucky?
You started without me?
Of course I started without you. The show must go on. But Rosie was keeping your place the whole time.
Okay, whatever. Hey guys, I'm sorry. I was in a very important mission, but I'm here. I'm here now.
Yay! We're so glad you're here now.
Adjusting the mic a little bit.
Just so we can see that there. So I just went through the parenting ones. I recommended 2 books, which was No Bad Kids
fantastic.
and The Whole Brain Child.
Did you tell them that No Bad Kids is actually for adults as well? Because it helps you so much as an adult?
No, I forgot to talk about that. Well, I mean, because it's interesting because in learning about your toddler, you begin to see things like, oh, yeah, I could have used that in my life.
I know.
And then you're like, maybe I should start doing that for myself now. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there is that aspect. And then I just finished in the science category with Brian Greene's The Fabric of the Cosmos.
Okay.
And how it was a surprise, and it's a surprise category for me because I'm not a real, like, ooh, let's read entire books about science kind of person. Though I like science, but I'm not, that's not my domain, right? And when you say that it's not my domain, here domain means like your area of expertise. It's not my area of expertise. It's not my passion. It's, it's not something that I usually go for. So it's not in my domain, but I really enjoyed this book.
And if you want to tone it down a notch, it's not my thing also works.
Yeah.
Which is, by the way, a very good, very useful expression, right?
That's true. It's not my thing is more informal. It's not in my domain. You can use in both formal and informal situations. People do speak it. So, good.
Yeah. All right. I can see I'm a little colder than you are. That's unusual, but okay.
I'm pregnant, so
Oh, that's true.
I have the heater on. Should I continue? Because the next one is something that we both discovered together. So it might be a good category to start you in on. And you're peeking at my notes.
I see. Well, did you take that from the pile I made just there? Did you see that?
No, I had this before you made the pile.
Really?
Yeah.
Because that was option number one for me.
How not to talk about this? Okay, let's take them out of suspense.
Yeah.
So the next category that I had written down, and then he had picked the same trio of books that I had thought about, is for creative inspiration. So if you are a creative person in any way whatsoever, even if it's just for a hobby or maybe even for your profession, these books are for you. The first book and then the two that came after. So now they kind of make a 3-book set, but they're all great. So please, Daniel, they want to hear your voice. They're sick of me already.
All right. So first, a little bit about the author. This guy, I'm going to mention his name in a minute. He is basically the person that invented something that is now called blackout poetry. So what he did was, I'm not really sure that he invented it, but I'm pretty sure he invented it, but he's the one that made it famous if he didn't invent it, right? So basically what he does is he gets a page out of a newspaper and a black marker, and he blacks out most of the text, and he leaves interesting words without blacking them out, and thus creating a poem or some kind of smart sentence or some kind of twist, unexpected turn in that story. So let's say it's a story about, I don't know, it's a story about the Nazis, right? A historical piece on the opinion section of the newspaper about the Nazis. And then he goes on, he blacks out a bunch of words, and he leaves in a sentence that contains a lot of love and hope. So you see, this is not the only way he does it, but blackout poetry is fantastic. You just Google that. So anyway, this guy's name is Austin Kleon, and his book, the first book that he released, and then I don't know if he had a trilogy in mind, but it's this one, Steal Like an Artist. I've seen it published in Brazil. I've seen it published in Portuguese. And as I mentioned, and Raquel too, it's a trilogy. So this is the first one. This is the second one, Show Your Work. And the most recent one that came out, I want to say it came out earlier last year, is Keep Going. Now, I like this book so much that back when I was working at a school, I ordered the first two, a few extra copies of the first two to give people that I really liked, give students that I really liked. And these books are fantastic. Basically, the author teaches you, well, in the first one, right here, a few basic techniques to look at the world everywhere you see interesting things, intelligent things, smart things, clever solutions that you should steal, quote unquote, steal them and apply them into your own work or creative work or even life, right? The second one is more focused on people who work with creativity, like more directly, people who create stuff, right? Show your work means, okay, great. You're stealing stuff from everyone. You're having these great ideas, but you're keeping them to yourself. So you should be showing, right? It's all about displaying what you have transformed into your own. And the third one, keep going, is there's a bunch more precious advice and a bunch of tips on how to keep applying the first two books. You know, how to find different ways to keep on stealing like an artist and showing your work. Fantastic. It's not a textbook kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's more like you were gonna share? Yeah. So it's very visually playful. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not a book that you would sit down and read and take notes. You know, it looks like it was half written with a marker, actually. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, there's a lot of pearls of wisdom in here, and it's a considerably short set of books if you think about the three. In one sitting, you can read this and be like, you know, it blows your mind. It's really cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's another easy read. It's not heavy. You can, aside from the fact that, right, some of the ideas are really great. So sometimes you want to stop just so that you can absorb and try them out, right? Sometimes if you get inspired by it, but it's not because it's so difficult to read, or it's really written in a way that is very conversational and enjoyable. So real fun.
Yay. All right. I didn't know we had both picked out these three.
We did.
I love these books.
So that was why it was perfect transition. Why don't you choose a category on a book now?
Category in a book. Okay. Kind of recently I fell in love with a poet and a writer that Raquel introduced me to, who's called Maya Angelou. She passed away in 2017, I want to say. I don't remember exactly, but it hasn't been long. And she was a mighty writer. She had a powerful voice. She was, of course, an old lady, but she was a very unique character. And I want to say a couple of years ago, I was in the States and I picked up what is her most famous book, and happens to also be her autobiography, which is a category of books that I love. Autobiographies are fantastic, especially if the person has a unique voice, you know, because sometimes it's just whatever. It's someone famous that wants to, you know, sell books because they can, because if they, you know, if there's a picture of them like kind of like looking young on the cover, it sells well, you know, like band people and stuff. This woman is just above and beyond. She's unbelievable. The name of her autobiography is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And it's basically also, if you're paying attention, it's a brief history of race in America in, you know, mid 20th century and later, because she was an activist for this cause most of her life, and she was one of the main people that authorities looked to when this was the subject, right? The subject of race in America. She was indispensable. And this autobiography is phenomenal. I mean, in the first 10 pages, she already tells you that she didn't speak for whatever 6 or 7 years when she was a child because of a traumatic event in her childhood, which was she was sexually abused as a kid. And then someone, maybe I don't recall if it was a brother. I think it was a brother or an uncle, discovered who the person was and killed that person. So because she told him, right? So she, as a child, and she tells this in the first few pages, she says that she thought her voice had the power to kill people. So she just stopped talking as a child. But she read voraciously. So she would read 6-7 times more than the regular children in her school. And she would bring books home, and the teachers would lend books to her that were not appropriate for her age and stuff. And so she started reading Shakespeare at the age of 12, 13. And then she says at this point, like, this is not a spoiler, okay, guys? This is very early in the book. She says at one point, when she finally decided to speak, she already had a lot to say. And that she did. And she always had throughout her life. Phenomenal, fantastic book. A beautiful, painfully beautiful analysis of what it means to be black in the United States, what it means to be a woman in the United States, what it means to be a black woman in the southern United States, which is where she grew up, right? Fantastic. Just fantastic. I'm a big fan. I could talk about this book for hours, but I'm going to stop.
No, she's an incredible human being.
Yeah.
Aside from being an incredible writer, she was quite something else.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting near towards the end, so maybe we should only do one more book, and then perhaps in the future we'll have a part 2.
Ooh, I like that.
If you people want
I'm late.
Why don't you talk about that book there, because it's in a special category in my list. So so you talk about it and what category it holds for you, and then I'm going to talk about what it holds for me.
This book?
Yes.
Okay, so the author, let me put a different spin on this. The author is the current writer for the Marvel comic books Captain America. He's the person responsible for writing Captain America. And I got to know about the existence of this book and this author through watching one of my favorite actors in one of my favorite action movies, which is The Equalizer Part 2. I'm a big Denzel Washington fan. I don't know why she's laughing. He's amazing.
He is amazing, but the way you say things sometimes it just makes me...
I know. His name is Ta-Nehisi Coates, and the name of the book is Between the World and Me. This is a fantastic piece of literature. He is also a writer and collaborator for The Atlantic magazine. So if you want to read him for free, you just go on The Atlantic and find his name. And you can, I think it's 5 articles a month you can read. He has been the counselor for people such as Barack Obama when he was in office. Like he is one of the most prolific and important writers concerning the aspect of race again in America right now. And this book follows a format of one of his mentors. I mean, I think he was an indirect mentor. I'm pretty sure they did not share like time together or anything. But another great guy who was James Baldwin. Baldwin also wrote a book in the same format, which is a bunch of letters. So James Baldwin sat down and wrote letters, I want to say, to his brother. He was living in Paris and his brother was living in America. And Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote this book as a very long letter to his 16-year-old son to talk to him about what it means to be black in America and the fears that he has for his son and the fears that he had when he was young and the different challenges that both face then and now, right? And it's just phenomenal. Like, just for you to have an idea, one of the sentences that blew my mind, the first few pages too, it's not a big spoiler, but it is one of the best sentences in the whole book. And it is also in The Equalizer. No, it's not. It's in American Son, a Netflix movie. The sentence goes like this. For race is not the father. No, racism is not the son of the concept of race, but the father. So he defends the idea that racism is what gave birth to the idea of thinking about mankind in terms of race, like the white race and the black race and the yellow race, right? So racism gave birth to that. I'm gonna shut up now, and I want to see your end. I want to hear what you have to say. Good.
He's just a little excited, right?
I am.
I told you. So I put this book in my dying to read category. What does that mean when we say you're dying to do something? It means, man, you really, really, really want to do it. You would die. You know, we're being dramatic, right? In the English language. Sometimes we have phrases that help us be very dramatic and exaggerated. And dying to do something is one of them. And so for me, this book is in the dying to read category.
Okay.
Because I actually heard about this book before Daniel did. Before the Equalizer movie. It had already been on my radar. Okay. That expression, on my radar, just means I had heard about it and I was kind of interested in it. It was sort of floating around. I had heard some good things. I saw a couple of references to it and I was mildly curious, right? And then Daniel read the book and you see how he got, right? So it was already on my radar. Then Daniel read it. And so then my curiosity was stoked. It was sparked. I wanted to read this book. So it's on my to-read list. I don't have lots of time to read at the moment, but slowly, surely, I'm going to finish up the books that I'm in the middle of. And that is going to be one of my next reads because it sounds fantastic.
It really is.
So before we go, I did this before with the parenting books. I don't know if we want to just jot down the titles of the other ones. So science, hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Science, in the science category is Fabric of the Cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had our creative inspiration trio, which were Steal Like an Artist, Show Your Work, and Keep Going.
This is a trilogy.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Keep
Very good.
going. All right. And then our last book maybe defies classification, except that it's on Raquel's dying to read list. Between the World and Me.
And this one.
Oh, and how could I forget that one?
So creativity, science, creativity, and
your autobiography. Yeah, I know it's a lackluster word for that book because it's more than just an autobiography, people. It's really, it is a work of poetry joined to autobiography. So I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And finally, that last one. What's going on?
Keep going.
Yay.
I lost a bunch of stuff here. Okay. Again. So, and then the other two, right? I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings.
So this is the autobiography that's much more than just an autobiography. Very worth reading. And then the last one. Between the World and Me.
Yeah.
All right. So that pretty much sums up some of the many, 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 many books we like, because we are obsessed.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know that you're going to see us this crazy in a whole lot of other topics, for class. I mean,
oh, yes, you will. Don't worry.
Yeah, guys, look, one of the things that brought us together is that we're a bunch of helpless nerds. So we're going to geek out on a regular basis about stuff together.
Geek out. What does that mean when you geek out?
Geek out? You know what I did when Raquel gave me permission to talk? I couldn't shut up about? anything, that's geeking out. Like if you know something, when you overshare, not the same, but
No, not the same.
overshare is when you're slightly inappropriate, right? You say too much.
Yeah, no. When you geek out is someone asks a question about a topic that you know a lot about and you're passionate about, and you just lose all sense of propriety, right? All sense of common sense, and you just talk really excited about it and give way more details than the person wanted. That's when you geek out.
Yeah, I geeked out. I'm not sorry.
Nor should you be.
Nor should I be. Okay.
So that's it for this Podclass. But there will be more.
Oh, yeah.
So you can tune your ear to English. We'll have lots of things to talk about and maybe pick up a few extra ideas, recommendations, and other things along the way.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.